When diplomacy cracked and Earth's fleet began mobilizing toward the Calcaris border, the High Council finally admitted what everyone else had whispered for weeks. A war was coming. The Tor'Kaan Empire had never respected humans. In their eyes, Earth was a young world, too loud, too bold, and too sentimental. When an inexperienced diplomat insulted one of their war chiefs during a trade negotiation, they took it as a declaration of dishonor. And for the Tor'Kaan, honor was sacred. Blood was the only apology they understood. 3 torpedo cruisers were already en route to the Vega relay, a clear warning shot. The message was simple: send someone worthy to apologize, or prepare for conflict. The council debated, as bureaucrats do. Names were tossed around: calm thinkers, polished talkers, political veterans, all rejected by the Tor'Kaan envoy. They wanted a speaker of strength, a warrior, someone who could talk with fists if needed. The Earth ambassador to the Galactic Coalition stood up and said, "There's only one man they'll listen to, and he doesn't wear a tie." Randall Brees hadn't worn a uniform in 12 years. Colonel, Earth Systems Infantry, retired. Served in the siege of Tau Sigma, 2 silver spears, 1 artificial lung, and a reputation that lingered like battle smoke. He lived alone in an orbital farm above Europa, raising dogs and pretending his bones didn't ache every morning. When the council's envoy came knocking, Brees didn't answer the first time, or the second. They finally got him when he came into town to restock power cells. "You don't need me," he said flatly. "You need someone who still believes in the mission." "We need someone who won't get laughed out of the room," replied the aide. "They want someone who's bled, someone who can speak their language." Brees looked out over the Martian horizon, red and quiet. Then he looked back. "You're not asking for a diplomat." "No, sir. We're asking for a deterrent." He didn't pack much, just a travel case, a single change of clothes, and a sealed container that hadn't been opened in over a decade. Inside it, an old model Aegis 9 combat frame. Armor built in the early interstellar conflicts. Outdated. Heavier than newer suits, but reliable. Manual controls. No AI dependencies. Just hard plating, old instincts, and brute survival. Before boarding the diplomatic shuttle, the pilot looked at him and said, "Sir, you know they might test you." Brees grunted. "I hope they do." The Tor'Kaan war cruiser Kartal was half a mile of living steel and ritual scars. It orbited the neutral station above Calcaris III, bristling with plasma turrets and ceremonial blades welded along the hull. Brees stepped onto its deck alone. No aides, no guards. Just a battered case and a man who walked like he remembered war too well to be impressed by ceremony. The Tor'Kaan were waiting. 12 warriors in blood-etched armor, each twice the mass of a human, eyes like molten copper. Their leader stepped forward. War Chief Kraktal, the one who had been insulted. "You are the Earth's answer?" Kraktal growled. Brees looked him dead in the eye. "No, I'm Earth's question. You get to decide the answer." The room paused. A beat, a shift, a ripple of respect, or curiosity. Then Kraktal grinned, wide and sharp. "Good. We speak with fists before we speak with words." A ceremonial challenge. A duel. Brees cracked his neck. "Then I'd better change into something less diplomatic." He walked to the center of the chamber, opened the case, and stepped into the armor. The hiss of old servos. The clank of titanium around scarred muscle. Ambassador Brees was gone. Colonel Brees had returned. He slammed the helmet shut. The duel would begin at dawn, and the galaxy would learn that some old wolves still had teeth. The ceremonial arena aboard the Kartal was a brutal thing. A circular chamber carved from obsidian black alloy with jagged Tor'Kaan glyphs etched into every surface. The walls were lined with trophies, broken helmets, shattered weapons, a few too human in shape to ignore. At the center was a circle of scorched metal, the duel pit. No energy fields, no shields, just raw tradition. Strength decides truth, said one of the ancient glyphs, but mercy decides leaders. Brees stood at the edge of the circle, fully armored in his weathered Aegis 9. The suit groaned softly as he moved, its old servos responding like a tired but faithful war horse. Across from him stood Vakharan, a younger champion from the war chief's own bloodline. 7 feet tall, scales like basalt, armed with a traditional double-blade axe that hummed with magnetic charge. It wasn't just a duel. It was a message. Beat their best, and they might listen. Lose, and Earth would be ashes before the Council could even draft a protest. Before the match, Kraktal approached Brees with a sneer. "You may wear metal, human, but you bleed like any prey." Brees didn't blink. "I've bled on 3 moons and 5 continents. The question is whether you can stand back up after." Kraktal growled something in his own tongue. It sounded amused. The circle pulsed red. The duel had begun. Round 1 was fury. Vakharan moved like a predator, fast and savage, his axe slicing the air with deadly arcs. He came in hard, testing Brees with feints and full-body strikes. The young warrior expected the human to play defense, dodge, hide, falter. Instead, Brees stepped into the blow, caught the haft with both armored arms, let the force drive him back a step, and then slammed his helmet forward into Vakharan's faceplate. A crude move, brutal, effective. The crowd let out a surprised hiss. Vakharan stumbled, regained balance, and bellowed with rage. Round 2 was memory. Brees didn't rely on strength. He couldn't. Not at 67, even with armor. But he'd fought worse, in trenches where the air burned, on colony walls where ammo ran dry, and fists did the talking. He lured Vakharan in, let him overextend, then used torque and gravity, old soldiers' tricks. He tripped him with a pivoted knee strike, knocked the axe wide, and got 1 armored gauntlet to the alien's throat. He could have crushed it. The Aegis 9 was outdated, but not weak. Instead, he held position, frozen, a silent question. The chamber quieted. Even Kraktal narrowed his eyes. Brees slowly released pressure and stepped back. "I came to talk," he said through the external speaker. "Not to kill, but I wanted to make sure you'd listen first." Vakharan lay stunned for a moment, then sat up slowly. He looked at the humans, truly looked, for the first time, and he nodded. Kraktal descended from the observation throne, his face unreadable. He walked slowly toward the arena, then raised one hand in a gesture that stopped the guards in their tracks. "You fought with fury. You held back with honor. Perhaps you are not what we thought." Brees removed his helmet. His gray hair was slicked with sweat. His jaw was set like concrete. "I've buried good men under flags and plasma fire," he said. "So if I can stop another war before it starts, I'll wear your armor, fight your fights, and talk your terms, but only once." A silence fell. Then Kraktal offered something rare, a bow, just the barest incline of the head. But in Tor'Kaan culture, it was louder than a cheer. Later, in the warship's diplomatic chamber, Brees sat across from the War Council. The fight was done, but the true battle was just beginning. There would be negotiations, demands, concessions. But now, at least, they were speaking the same language, respect. And Randall Brees, Earth's last-ditch ambassador, had earned it not through eloquence, but through old scars, steel, and the discipline to hold back when it mattered most. The War Council chamber was nothing like the duel arena. It was cold, sterile, and bathed in the pale light of Calcaras's distant sun, filtering through thick crystalline windows. Here, the weapons were words, sharp, precise, and often deadlier than plasma bolts. Randall Brees sat rigidly in his worn Aegis 9 frame, the heavy armor a reminder of battles past and a symbol of strength that spoke louder than any speech. Across from him, the Tor'Kaan leaders loomed, proud, unyielding, their many eyes fixed on the human who dared to come alone. Brees began not with threats, nor with promises, but with stories. Stories of Earth's long history of war and peace, of humanity's brutal past and hard-won unity. He spoke of trenches in forgotten colonies, of cities razed and rebuilt, of families lost to conflicts bigger than themselves. He told of how Earth had survived by learning, by knowing when to fight and when to seek peace. "You think we are young and foolish," Brees said, voice low but steady. "But you forget. Every scar on my armor tells a story. Not of glory, but of survival, of choices made under fire. Sometimes the hardest battle is not against an enemy, but against your own pride." One of the Tor'Kaan elders, a wizened warrior named Shavrak, leaned forward. His voice was gravelly, almost reluctant. "We are a race of warriors, Brees. Peace is earned with blood. Why should we believe you?" Brees met his gaze evenly. "Because I'm not just a soldier. I am also a son, a father, a witness to what endless war does to a species. If Earth can stop itself from falling apart, if we can come together despite all our flaws, so can you." The room fell silent. The weight of his words settled over them like a mantle. The Tor'Kaan respected strength, but they also respected honor, the courage to admit pain, the wisdom to choose life over destruction. Brees then laid out a proposal: joint patrols to monitor the border, exchange of military officers to foster understanding, shared technology to improve defenses, not for conquest, but for survival. "It's not surrender," Brees emphasized. "It's a strategy. War is the last thing we want. But if it comes, we will fight with every breath. Until then, we build trust." Kraktal, the war chief, finally nodded. "Your words carry the weight of a man who has lived through war's worst. We will consider your proposal." But Brees knew the hardest battles are often fought long after the guns fall silent. As he prepared to leave the chamber, one young Tor'Kaan officer approached quietly. "Why do you wear that old armor, human?" Brees smiled faintly, fingers tracing a dent on the breastplate. "It reminds me where I come from, and what I'm fighting for. Not just Earth, but the chance to live, to change, to build something better." The war was not over. Not by far. But for the first time, there was a flicker of hope. A fragile ember born of steel and words. Weeks had passed since Randall Brees first set foot aboard the Kartal in his battered old armor. Time aboard the Tor'Kaan warship flowed differently. Each day, a test of patience, each conversation, a delicate dance of cautious hope. At first, suspicion and hostility clung to the Tor'Kaan like the weight of their heavy battle armor. But slowly, through joint patrols along the contested border and the exchange of military officers, a fragile respect began to grow between the two peoples. What started as tentative sparks became a steady flame, warming the cold shadows of distrust. Brees became more than just an ambassador. He became a living symbol, a walking testament that even the oldest warrior could choose peace. And that true strength often lies in wisdom and restraint rather than sheer force. One evening, beneath the twin moons of Calcaris, one silver, the other a deep crimson, War Chief Kraktal summoned Brees to the War Council chamber for a final meeting. The massive warlord's voice was softer now, less the booming command of a battlefield and more the measured tone of reflection. "We do not forget those who come clad in armor, but fight without shedding blood," Kraktal said, locking eyes with Brees. "You have earned our respect. The peace you offer is not a sign of weakness. It is the truest form of strength." Brees nodded slowly. There was gratitude and understanding in those words, forged by years of battle and loss. "I did not come to glorify war," Brees replied quietly. "I fought so that one day my children, and yours, might live without the constant shadow of fear and loss, so they might never have to repeat our mistakes." The signing of the Treaty of Calcaris marked a turning point, not just for Earth and the Tor'Kaan Empire, but for the galaxy at large. Two proud civilizations, once poised for war, now committed themselves to cooperation, mutual defense, and shared prosperity. Joint military exercises replaced patrol clashes. Scientific and technological exchanges flourished. Diplomats and soldiers alike began to see each other as allies rather than enemies. When it came time for Brees to leave the Kartal and return home, he carefully packed away the Aegis 9 combat frame, the old, worn armor that had been his shield, his voice, and his symbol. Its purpose had been fulfilled. Standing once more on the quiet orbital farm above Europa, Brees looked up at the endless stars. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but humanity had claimed its place, not by brute strength alone, but through heart, wisdom, and relentless courage. Randall Brees, the man who came in armor but won with restraint, became a legend across the stars, remembered not for his weapons or his victories, but for his patience, his wisdom, and his courage to fight the hardest battle of all, the fight for peace. As he often said, "The greatest battles are the ones fought with patience, reason, and hope for a better tomorrow."